Welcome to College of Complexes. This is our 463rd meeting since we started in February 2009. We put a different speaker on every week, a different subject. We require a speaker to take a position on an issue or express a point of view that had to be for or against something. We don't care what it is. We give them an hour to make a presentation. If they go over an hour, we cut them off. If anybody interrupts the speaker, remind the interrupter we listen only one fool at a time, one of our rules. Then we have questions and answers from the audience of the speaker, not speeches. Then we have remarks, rebuttals. Everyone in this audience that wants to gets 5 minutes at the podium here to respond to the speaker said for or against. And our speaker is the last word, gets a comment and close the meeting. Well, our speaker, for whatever reason, is not here.
No.
Yes.
Oh!
No!
Yes.
Where is your speaker?
Well, I called our speaker earlier today, and his phone line was plugged up, so I couldn't leave a message. Then I called again recently.
Can't you text them?
There was a what do they call it?
SMS.
SMS. I used that, and I left my phone number, but I still haven't heard. He's lost, or he should be here any minute. I don't know. Anyway, if he shows up, we'll put him on. But meanwhile, we've discussed this a little bit, what we might do. We want to go in the same program. And John, you want to read the...
Yes.
Yes, he's going to read these.
Maybe we just have discussion.
All right. I've been deputized to read the agenda. So let me begin. So
Can you rotate that light a little bit there? That light is showing in the camera.
okay. I was going to use.
There we go. That's
Is that
good.
good?
Much,
Okay.
yeah.
Oh,
Probably good.
Okay. So anyway, Mike would have discussed how it is that a Muslim effort is ongoing in building a cohesive America, where each one of the 323 million Americans feels secure about his or her faith, race, ethnicity, culture, sexual and political orientations. He points out that we are Americans, we are free and brave people, and have to live freely and jettison our apprehensions about each other. Mike advises that if you are a conservative, then grudgingly you will see a value in it. If you are a moderate, you will dance with joy. His latest book paved the way for Muslims to own up to their mistakes, remedy them, and correct them. Muslims are perceived by fellow Americans. Mike argues that Islam is not about Sharia, imposing your ideas or governing others. Rather, Islam is about living your life and letting others live theirs with freedom. It is a bold challenge to Muslims. He shows a narration from humanity's, I won't say that word, perspective of the essence and purpose of Islam for the first time. Mike articulates in Islamic history 12 values of Islam that contribute to create secure, orderly, and cohesive societies. He concludes that the best way to combat Islamophobia is through education, engagement, and dialogue. Mike lays out a clear agenda to foster harmony among fellow Americans. It is akin to planting a seed and nurturing to give the beneficence to the next generation. So his book will become a reference manual to teachers of Islam and knowledge seekers about Islam, as it is backed up from verses from the Quran. And you can order his book, and the details are given in this announcement. So anyway, thank you very much.
Hyder.
Are there any announcements? Now's the time for announcements. Come on up here.
I'm just going to say it from back here. It has nothing to do with program that I live at 3883 Turtle Creek, and I have an apartment for rent. If somebody's interested in checking with me, I'll give you more details.
Okay,
Yeah, it's
3883
Turtle
Turtle Creek.
21 Turtle Creek, and you say name device, it's $13.50, it includes all your utilities, valet service, you've been in the building. Yes, valet, underground parking, and they take care of your car. Sauna, men's and women's sauna, hot tub, heated swimming pool, dog park, dog run, state-of-the-art exercise room, library, blah, blah, blah. $775.
Some may want to move there. Sounds very good. Anyway,
I'd like to say he'd say a few words.
oh yes, of course, well, let me finish this, then we'll put them on. Anyway, June 15th, next week is David Alec, MD, board certified. What is this thing doing here?
Speaking.
Is that better? All right.
Yes. We'll raise that other mic up there, talking to that other mic. There we go.
Okay. Next week is What Makes You Who You Are, David Alec, board certified dermatologist. We'll talk about that. It's on your itinerary. I'm not going to read all this. On June 22nd, are you being treated adequately for your brain problems? That's Dr. Daniel Hurley. This is a long thing there. Read it, and it's on your itinerary. June 29th, John Beasley, sitting right here, will be our speaker, talking about greed ruins everything, and it should be good. He's an English-born author and retired after a long career with Xerox, and he will discuss. Anyway, it's on your itinerary. You can read it all. July 6th and 13th, there'll be no meetings, and the restaurant is closed part of that time. July 20th is the next open date for a meeting at that building. We're into August, actually, for the meetings. So, our speaker tonight is supposed to be Dr. Mike Ghouse. I don't know what happened. I tried to get a hold of him and everything. I discussed that with you earlier. But what is his name now?
Radwar. Radwar.
Radwan. Anyway, he is also Muslim. He can talk about this. So he's going to be our speaker tonight. Come on up here.
This is his first time here.
First time.
You want to adjust the
Right up to an
microphones?
hour if you want to.
Tom, can you adjust the microphones for him, please?
Sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
This is good evening, good morning, good day, bonjour, howdy, anything you like. Assalamu alaikum means may peace be with you. Peace is just another name for God. May God always be with you. My name is Radwan. I've been in this country. By the way, thank you, Mary, for giving me the opportunity to be here. Appreciate it. I try to talk slow. Excuse my accent. If you have any questions, please, I'll give you my phone number, I'll give you my address. I am a Muslim, and I am a practicing Muslim. I pray 5 times a day. I do. I've been in this country since 1989. Before coming to this country, you might not believe it, I lived in Mecca, in Saudi Arabia. I lived there for 15 years. I have no good memories of Mecca. This is my country.
Thank you.
I'll tell you a little story. Before I go further, please draw the line. Please draw the line between Islam and Muslims. Islam as a religion is great. Some of us Muslims are not. I say that with deep grief in my heart. Islam is great, some of us Muslims are not. I have 5 children. One of them is born in Mecca, Saudi Arabia. He does not have the right to go to school in Saudi Arabia. I can sponsor him until his 18th birthday in Saudi Arabia. The day he turns 18, we have 2 options. He either has to leave Saudi Arabia or he has to find a Saudi sponsor, a Saudi local to sponsor him. I cannot sponsor him past his 18th birthday. He cannot stay in Saudi Arabia past his 18th birthday. That's Saudi Arabia. That's not Islam. That's not Islam. That's Saudi Arabia. I have another son who was born in the Bronx, New York. I was not a citizen then. I was not a green card then. I never come to the United States before then. I just knew the law. I had some conditions that permitted me to do it. He was born in New York. He lived in New York for 7 days. We went back to Saudi Arabia. He has the right to become another Barack Obama or another Donald Trump. He has the right to be the president of the United States. That's what makes me a proud American. That's what makes me a proud American. I came to this country in 1989. My 2 sons went to school. I came on a Sunday. Monday, the next day, both of them were in schools. I was thinking to myself, who pays for this? This is too good to be true. I was in Saudi Arabia, and I had to fight. I had to fight to give them the basic needs, the vaccination for. My 2 sons were in school. The next day I came to the United States. Free food, free bus. They had a special program for them to teach them English, to teach them the culture. Guess what?
They can't do that here. Could you turn your mic up? John, maybe something can be done.
Is it better now? Yeah. Is it better?
Yes.
Good.
That's good right
Apologize.
there. That's fine.
That's all.
That's all you need.
John, you don't need to do anything.
He's fine.
Is it better now?
Yeah.
So it's fine. I was thinking then, who pays for this? This is too good to be true. Guess what? Today, between my 3 older children who are working and myself, we pay close to $500,000 in taxes every year. My youngest daughter is a pediatrician. My oldest son is a master's degree in petroleum engineering.
Wow.
My Yankee, the son who was born in Bronx, New York, he's a director with T-Mobile. I myself, I'm retired from the state of Texas. I served the state of Texas for 16 years. I'm now serving with the city of Dallas. Before coming to the United States, I had a master's degree from the American University of Beirut in civil engineering. I got myself another master's degree in civil engineering from Texas A&M. My point is this: Islam is great. Some Muslims are not. Just like any other group of people around on the face of the earth. Again, you might write my name, my phone number. I'll be more than happy to answer any question about the religion, about the culture. I happen to be Palestinian, by the way. We need your help. We, the Palestinian people especially, we need your help. Our foreign policy when it comes to the Middle East, is more than bankrupt, and I'm sorry to say that. Until you, the American public, know the facts, nothing good is going to happen in the Middle East. We need your help. You might want to write my name and phone number, my email address. My name is Radwan, R-A-D-W-A-N. Radwan. Radwan is a biblical name, by the way. Stands for Peter, the angel at the gate to heaven. Radwan stands for Peter in the Bible. My last name is Dalu, D-A-L-U. My phone number is 512, it's an Austin number. I used to live in Austin. 512-443-1900. And my email address, my personal email address is R, which is my initial, Dalu, my last name, D-A-L-U. So it's R-D-A-L-U, no hyphen, no period, nothing. RDALU@yahoo.com. Please draw a line between Islam, the religion, and Muslims, the wrong people. There are political problems, there are cultural problems, there is oil over there, there is Israel over there, there are dictators that we breed over there. Just look at the big picture. If you have any questions here, I'll be more than happy to address them. Yes, ma'am. Yes, yes.
Wait, you need a microphone. Oh, I have a loud.
No, don't do the loud voice thing. I need it on the mic.
Radwan,
Yes, ma'am.
you draw the distinction between being, Islam, okay, or Islamist, is that the correct way to go?
Correct.
Versus being a Muslim. What is other than, the Islamists being very close to and supposed to living life by the Quran, what's the difference as it relates to the term Muslim, which most people from the Middle East, if they practice or live by the Quran or claim to live by the Quran, they call themselves a Muslim. So you're drawing a distinction here. You're trying to indicate that Muslims somehow are more closely related to a terrorist faction, or what? I really don't get the difference here. If you could explain that further.
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Well, most people who refer to people from the Middle East
Yeah.
don't call them Islamists. At least not in this country. They refer to them as Muslims. Okay, and it's not just the terrorist factions that they're referring to when they say Muslims.
My
They're
understanding,
making a distinction. That's what I wanted to know.
my understanding is Muslim refers to the religion of a person. To the religion.
Yeah.
I'm a Muslim.
Yeah.
Islamist is more like a political reference to your affiliation. Okay, to your affiliation. Okay, I'm not an Islamist. I don't call myself an Islamist.
No.
Okay,
Muslim?
I am a Muslim. Yes,
Yeah.
I am a Muslim and I'm a proud Muslim. I pray 5 times a day. I do. I just fasted Ramadan. I just finished Ramadan. I do. I'm not an Islamist.
But you made the comment that Islam is good,
Islam is good
but Muslims, some of them are not so good.
because they're not
So
following
you're
Islam.
not talking about the whole Muslim race when you say that. It's just a distinct strip of people within there. I'm not going to say race. I apologize.
Don't worry.
That's incorrect on my part.
What
I
I'm saying,
apologize.
what I'm saying is, many of us are not following the religion. Many of us, unfortunately, are not following the religion.
Yeah.
I don't shy about saying I don't drink. I don't shy. I don't drink. I'm proud of it. Some of us they try to be nice to you. You know, they drink. I don't. I don't shy about saying I don't eat pork. Some of us, again, don't want to feel, they feel they might be offending you. None of us are not going, are not following the right teaching of the religion.
Yeah.
But the Muslim and Islamists are two different things. Muslim is just the religious affiliation.
Exactly.
Islamist is more of the political,
Agree.
your way of thinking, your inclination, politically.
But so you as a personal, for your Muslim faith, and you adhere to the prayer called for, what about your position on women? What is, certainly the Quran spells out very, finite positions on what a woman's role is in society. It isn't necessarily for her equal rights.
Let me tell you a story. I hope that will answer it. I don't know if any of you know what the word jihad means. Jihad, it's been in the news. Jihad literally means fighting. Doesn't mean boxing.
Oh, okay.
Fighting with yourself, fighting for the better. In Islam, if the country is attacked, if your honor is attacked, men are obligated to go to the battlefield. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah.
Yes. If the country is attacked, if your honor is attacked, men are obligated to go to the battlefield. Women are not. And if you die in the battlefield, is what you call murder. You are promised paradise, no questions asked. A group of women came to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and he said, this religion is racist. He said, how come? He said, men have a better chance of going to heavens, to paradise, than women. And he said, how come? How is that? Where did you get that? He said, men are obligated to go to the battlefield, and they have a better chance to go to heaven. His answer was that one labor, one pregnancy for a woman is worth fighting and dying in 70 battlefields. I hope that would answer the question.
In other words,
Worth fighting and dying 70 battlefields. That's how Islam considers a woman.
Okay, and the martyrdom and the connection to the 70 virgins awaiting them in heaven, what is that all about in your?
If the country is attacked, if your honor is attacked, I have a duty to go to the battlefield. That's the way God decided to reward me for it.
But where does the 70 virgins come into play?
I wish I can answer that question. I don't know.
Is there anything in the Quran pertaining to that is my question.
Not that I know of. Not that I know of. 70 virgins, not that I know of. I know God promised martyrs paradise. I don't know if 70 virgins are.
I don't know. Oh, all right, we maybe have.
Can we close this, maybe move to the
Yeah.
Can we, can someone else ask a question? Yeah, please do.
Yeah. Speak.
Well, we need questions.
Question.
Do you have any other questions, ma'am, before I? Do you have any?
I have a question here for you.
Okay.
That's already been addressed.
I was just answering the
I have friends who were in Libya when the Arab Spring event began to happen there, and before that took place, apparently Libya was a very peaceful place, and whatever form of Islam that was being practiced there had the people being very respectful to each other and in society and so forth. Can you explain something about the different, like Shia and Sunni, and maybe what was going on in Libya?
Libya is nothing but what we call mainstream Islam, Sunnis. Islam has two major sects. There is Sunni, which is the vast majority, I would say more than maybe 85–90% of Muslims around the world are Sunnis, and there is Shiites. I don't want to get into I don't know myself all the differences, but the basic difference as far as I know it, the Shiites believe that the prophethood, the Khalifa, the message of Islam, the rulers after the Prophet passed away, the message should have stayed in the family of Prophet Muhammad. That's the main difference. The Sunnis, they don't. There is like we call it democracy, call it whatever it is. When Muhammad died, the leadership didn't stay in his family. Muhammad has 3 children. None of them lived to be adult, for a reason that only God knows. None of his 3 children lived to be adult. If God wanted the message to stay within the family, he could have allowed, and he could have easily allowed one of his children to become adult and to take out the Shiites believe, I'm not trying to, I don't know, they might have other differences, but the Shiites believe that the message, the leadership should have stayed within the family. When Muhammad passed away, the next man in line was somebody called Abu Bakr. The man after him, somebody called Umar. The man after him, somebody called Uthman. And the man after him was called Ali. The only one of the 4 who was related to Muhammad was Ali. Ali was his nephew, and at the same time, his son-in-law. He was married to his daughter. Our brothers and sisters in Shiite faith believe that Ali should have been the man who comes after Muhammad. Libya was just like another Sunni. Saddam Hussein was Sunni. The point with them, they were secular. Both of them were secular. They were not like Saudi Arabia. They were not like the closest to our form of government, separating state from church, separating politics from religion, was really Saddam Hussein and Gaddafi. Saddam was Sunni himself. I have many friends who are from Iraq, who are Sunni and Shiite. I talk to them, they all say, God bless him now. Iraq was a better place. I'm not saying from our perspective. I've never lived in Iraq. I've never been to Iraq myself. I lived in Saudi Arabia for 15 years. I've been to Kuwait briefly. I'm Palestinian. I grew up in Palestine. I had my education in Lebanon. I've never been to Iraq. But Iraq was a safe place under Saddam. Iraq was a prosperous place under Saddam. I don't want to get into politics. I don't want to say I'm But I don't know if you know the story of Iraq. The story of Iraq started with Iran. There was somebody in Iran called the Shah of Iran. I don't know if anybody knows that part of history. The Shah of Iran was our policeman in the area, was our eyes, was our brain, was our hands. Iran under the Shah was our number one ally, was closer ally to us than Britain or France. Our technology, our weapons, the first place they went to outside the United States of America was not Britain, was not France, was not Germany, was not the Netherlands, was Iran. Iran under the Shah, again, was our eyes and ears and brain and everything. When the Islamists took over, there was too much at stake for us here in the United States to leave in the hands of the new regime. There were too many generals, highly educated in the US, highly qualified, that we couldn't leave unchecked. There was a stack of weaponry that we couldn't leave unchecked. We had to find a way of taking care of that. Donald Rumsfeld, for those who don't know, is the youngest and the oldest Secretary of Defense in the history of the nation. Donald Rumsfeld was Secretary of Defense under Gerald Ford at the age of 37, and he became Secretary of Defense under George W. at the age of around 74, 78, whatever it is. Donald Rumsfeld was dispatched to Saddam Hussein, who was living in exile in Egypt. He wasn't a prisoner. He was a dissident. He was living in fear in Egypt. Donald Rumsfeld went and met with Saddam Hussein. We bring you to power, you do as we tell you. And for 10 years, he was doing exactly that. We drained what we wanted to drain from Iran. Iran was not a dangerous place anymore. The generals that were in Iran were no more dangerous to us because they were gone. I'm not defending Saddam Hussein again, don't get me wrong. I hated that man. But everything we used, every pretext we used in the Iraq war was proven to be wrong by our own CIA and FBI. His link to terrorism never happened. When Saddam was there was nothing called Al-Qaeda, at least in Iraq. Nobody could say, I'm Islamist in Iraq. Saddam Hussein and Osama bin Laden were more bitter enemies than the United States of America and the Soviet Union at the peak of the Cold War. Saddam Hussein, his right-hand man, somebody by the name Tariq Aziz, is a Roman Catholic. Roman Catholic. Just politics is dirty. Politics is very dirty. Gaddafi, same thing. Gaddafi wasn't Islamist. He was a Muslim, but he wasn't an Islamist. He didn't rule in the same of Islam, like what the Saudis are doing now, like what the Iranians are doing now. They are ruling in the same of Islam. Gaddafi was not. Saddam was not. Assad of Syria is not. They are not ruling in the same Islam. They do not call themselves Islamists.
What about Egypt?
Egypt, they're not Islamists. There came a time, the president that came after Mubarak, somebody by the name of Morsi, he was an Islamist. He didn't survive long.
Right.
Less than a year, he was kicked out. Mubarak was not Islamist. The current president is not Islamist.
Go for it.
I hope I didn't offend anybody.
No.
You're doing very well.
I hope I didn't
Excellent.
offend anybody with what I said.
Excellent.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. I have some really pointed, hard questions, but I'm not going to start with that.
Please.
I wanted to fill out a little bit more about how you started. You said you don't have pleasant memories of Mecca. Why don't you fill that in a little more? And also, related to that, tell me if you've been back to that area of the world, which countries, what you know firsthand in the last 20 years, 25, 30 years.
The reason I'm saying I don't have pleasant memories, the Saudis themselves are not as friendly as you are guys. They're not. I lived in Saudi Arabia for 15 years. It's just, it's not as friendly, let's put it this way. It's not as friendly. My son, as I said, my 3 children were born when I lived over there. There's nothing that ties them to that part of the world.
Have you traveled in the last 30 years?
And the last time I went to Palestine, my mom was sick, was dying. This was in 1998. That was the last time I went to the Middle East. My mom was dying and I had just started my job with the state of Texas, the Texas Department of Transportation. I took advantage of, we get LBJ's birthday, August 27th, and we get Labor's Day, the first Monday of September. I wasn't eligible for any vacations. I took 6 days unpaid leave. 2 weekends, LBJ's birthday and Labor Day. Gave me 12 days. I went and saw my mom. She passed away 3 months after that.
How is Wahhabism viewed by Muslim people and the spread of their madrasas, in Pakistan and many other countries? Is that viewed as a healthy thing or not?
Wahhabism existed, was born and bred in Saudi Arabia. It's political more than religious. As far as I know, it doesn't exist in any type of strength, in any type of sincere presence, significant presence outside Saudi Arabia. It's politics again. The Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia today, he said that 3 months ago. I was surprised to hear him say it on TV. He said, we adopted Wahhabism upon the request of the United States of America because it was the only way to fight the Soviet Union.
Another question. Would you care to comment on Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, and his moves to try to broker a peace in the Palestine-Israeli situation?
That's not the kind of peace that people aspire for. I don't want to get into politics, but Israel occupied Jerusalem in 1967. Since 1967 until today, 52 years, there's been 12, 13 US administrations. None of them had the courage, call it courage, to claim to say Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. The Vatican did not fly the Israeli flag over the Christian places in Jerusalem until Benedict. John Paul II did not allow the Israeli flag to fly over the Christian place in Jerusalem. The issue of Jerusalem, I tell this to all my Jewish friends, all my American friends. If Israel, and you can hold me accountable for that, if Israel thinks that they can have peace, real peace, while holding to Jerusalem, they are dreaming. Christians and Muslims are going to fight it together. Jerusalem is too big of an issue for President Trump to grant it to Israel.
Amen.
So,
Thank you.
if you
I'm being honest. I'm telling you, I'm not trying to sugarcoat anything. I'm telling you this as a Palestinian, as an American, as a Muslim. I'm not trying to sugarcoat anything.
Okay, if you were appointed by United Nations to go to the Middle East and try to create a peace settlement between Israel and the people on the West Bank and Gaza, what would you do actually?
There are United Nations resolutions. Okay, there are several of them. The United Nations and all the major powers in the world, including the United Kingdom, they regard Jerusalem as occupied territory, part of the West Bank that must be returned and made part of a future Palestinian state.
Okay.
Does that?
Yeah, but what would you, yeah. So, but you see, as I understand it, you have three religions claiming various religious sites in Jerusalem, right? So really, it's a divided city. So no one religion or peoples can really claim ownership of it. Is that not true?
It is true. The issue is not religious. The issue is not religious. Christianity came 2,020 years ago. Judaism came 5,500 years ago or so. Islam came around 1,500 years or so, just less. There'll be no problems. There'll be no problems. People have been living in peace, everybody is practicing. The issue is political.
I've heard, well, there's a lot of Muslims, militant Muslims, that say they are practicing true Islam, and the people who deny what they're doing, going around and killing people, are not really practicing true Islam. And when you read things that the Quran says, it seems to justify what they're saying. What's your response to those people?
I'm not sure where you're getting Islam is justifying what they say. Islam says, I know what Quran says. I read it to you. I wish I could. If anybody has, I'm sure you can get it. Go to Quran. Let's go to Quran. If anybody has, go to Quran. I tell you what the Quran says. If you can save one life, it's just like you saved entire humanity. And if you kill one life, it's just like you killed entire humanity. It didn't say a Muslim life. It didn't say a Christian life. It didn't say a Jewish life. It didn't say a human life. Life. Life.
That's in the Quran?
That's in Quran. That's in Quran.
Okay, but
Chapter 3 or 4, chapter 4, Al-Ma'idah.
But it's also in the Quran that you're going to kill a bunch of Jews and whenever they.
No, sir. No, sir. Islam, I don't want to get into the, but one basic difference between Islam and Christianity, we believe in everything you guys believe in. We believe in everything you guys believe in. The biggest barrier is the issue of Trinity. In Islam, the cornerstone, the foundation of Islam is the oneness of God. God is supreme. Nothing comes, just like at the level of the country, at the level of the government, at the level of, I mean, there might be 20 vices, 20 deputies, 50, whatever it is, but there is one CEO. There is one ultimate power taking responsibility for this issue. Islam says God is one. Every time I say Jesus or Moses, I have to say, may peace be upon him. We glorify Jesus and Mary, may peace be upon them, more than many of the Christians I have met. About fighting, Islam says, go to peace, talk. If they fight you, if they try to fight you, it doesn't say fight them, it says kill them. Talk peace. If they fight you, it doesn't say just fight them, it says kill them. It's just like what you and I think. Islam is a little bit more practical. It's not ideal. Christianity, if somebody slaps you here, offer him. No. Islam is a little bit more practical. About divorce. Christianity, there is no divorce. Islam says the one thing that God permitted and hates to see happening is divorce. Sometimes it's the only way out. Sometimes it's the path of least resistance. Is it not? I mean, is it what you call haram? Is it like outlawed in Islam? No, it's not. But God says it's something I allow, but I hate to see. Islam doesn't say kill you. Islam says if they come and fight you, go kill them. I hope it has an answer. But go look for it. It's called chapter Ma'idah, I think the 3rd or 4th chapter in Quran. Okay? It clearly says if somebody kills a soul, and again, it doesn't say a Muslim or, you know, it doesn't say a soul. I mean, it doesn't say a Muslim or a Christian. It says a soul. If you kill a soul, just like you killed the entire humanity, if you can save one soul, just like you saved the entire humanity. But it does say if you attack me, I should try to kill you. I hope I didn't offend anybody.
Back in the late 1990s, I had some contact with some Iranian youth who were over here, and I think that I got an idea that generally Iran has a very young population. Many of them are very westernized. They're very secular in their feeling. And to me, it seems that Iran is ripe for regime change. What is your thinking on that?
Again, I really don't get into politics. I've never lived in Iran. I have fewer Iranian friends but I can say from what I hear, what I read, people are not happy with the regime. Right. But I don't know if that amounts to like people are calling for regime change. But I tell you, we have a saying in Arabic, me and my brother against my cousin. Me and my cousin against a stranger. In other words, if you want a regime change, it should come from within.
Right.
The regime change we did in Iraq was not the ideal one. The regime change we did in Iraq was not the ideal one. It did not serve the purpose. We should have let somebody from within do the job. The minute we step in, we unite them together.
Right.
The time we step in, the minute we step in, we make those who were not our friends, they make them family.
Yeah.
I forgot what I was gonna say.
Yes. Please, what are the hard questions?
Oh, God. Oh, yeah. Can you clarify your allegiance to authority to Sharia? And I'm pretty sure, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sharia sharply contradicts the United States Constitution, for instance, our way of life here. So I want to know which is more supreme for you, Sharia or United States law? And tell us more about Sharia. I think it's just a little bit unclear what Sharia actually is.
As far as I know, there is no Sharia law except in Saudi Arabia and Iran. Egypt doesn't have Sharia law. Pakistan, as far as I know, doesn't have Sharia law. Indonesia, a country of 300 million people, doesn't have Sharia law. By the way, Sharia law, Sharia in Arabic means what is dictated by God, what is called on by God. As far as I know, these laws are only in Saudi Arabia and Iran, and they are not, all of them, they're not fully executed. They're not fully implemented. To me, I mean, I lived in Palestine until I was 20. Then I lived in Lebanon for like 8 years. Then I lived in Saudi Arabia for like 15 years. And then I've been here in the US since 1989. The only Sharia law I've seen was in Saudi Arabia. There is no Sharia law in Lebanon, there is no Sharia law in Palestine. There is no Sharia law in Palestine until today. Yes, sorry.
Yes, you have presented yourself as a very honorable man, and I respect that, and I like that.
Thank you.
The question I have is, what percentage of the Muslim men are going to be honorable men? Because I look at history, and I think history has a habit of repeating itself. And two of the worst genocides in history were the first and second jihads. When the Muslim world took over North Africa in the first jihad, and then all the way into Spain in the second jihad, and they killed an estimated 250 million people then. Now, in the 1800s, this country was estimated to only have 18 million people, 350 million today. 250 million back then was like billions would be today. Now, from what I have seen of other Muslims who happen to be talking about it, some of them are planning the third jihad, and they're doing it by immigrating in and having massive amounts of children until they get a population rise where they can have their revolution. And this concerns me, not by people like you, but then I wonder, these people who seem to be so violent in history are so violent that the rest of the good Muslims cower to them. They don't stand up against them. And if someone stands up against them, then according to what you have just said, they have the right to kill you because you're resisting. Now, this is a problem that I see that we are facing in the Western world today, and I hope it does not come to that. I look at the history of Lebanon. It was a very peaceful country. It was the banking capital of the Middle East and the vacation capital of the Middle East until the revolution. And the revolution happened after enough Muslims immigrated in and decided, hell, we want this place for ourselves. Now, what do you think the majority of Muslim people will do when these radicals really get started in another jihad?
Which revolution are you talking about in Lebanon?
I'm sorry, what?
Which revolution you're talking about in Lebanon? You said until the revolution happened. Which revolution?
Well, I don't know the year, but it was fairly recent. A friend of mine was a Lufthansa captain, and his another captain had flown into Lebanon some years ago, and his wife was kidnapped and sold into a to a Muslim harem. And the local police said, "Don't try to find her, or they will kill you, and they will kill her." I mean, but you know, we have that kind of crime here in the United States as well. But I don't know just the year of that revolution.
I'll come to the main question, like about Lebanon. I lived in Lebanon. I've seen my best days in Lebanon. I'm a Palestinian. My heart bleeds for Lebanon more than Palestine. My heart bleeds for Lebanon. I have seen the best days of Lebanon. Lebanon was an oasis in the middle of
Yes.
yes. What's going on in Lebanon again is not religious. I have seen Lebanon. I've seen the best days of Lebanon. What's going on is political. Again, it's not religious. Lebanon, for your information, sir, there are 17 religious sects recognized and represented in the parliament in Lebanon. Every government position in Lebanon is labeled for a certain religious group. The president of the country must be Maronite. The prime minister must be Sunni. The speaker must be Shiite. The vice president, Greek Orthodox, and so on and so forth. Everything in Lebanon is based on, and it's not the Lebanon. It's the French occupation, the French mandate. Lebanon was under French mandate until 1945, 43, whatever it is. And it was France who put the constitution. That's in the constitution. The president has to be Maronite. The Maronites in Lebanon, Maronites are an offshoot of Catholicism. They're not more than 10% of the population of Lebanon. They're not more than 10% of the population of Lebanon. The president has to be Maronite. The president of the central bank has to be Maronite. The head of the army has to be Maronite. The ambassador to the United States has to be Maronite. I mean, this has nothing to do with Islam, sir. It's politics. I don't know how to say. But about the killing that was done by Muslim is nothing compared to the killing that was in history in any political entity that was created. The United States of America, when it was created, there was bloodshed. Correct? Am I right or not?
Well, I totally agree with that. But
Yes.
what I'm saying is that those were two extremely violent episodes in human history, and there are Muslims today who are saying, now they're political, I'll say that, but they use their religion as their politics, which you don't do. But they are saying, some of them, we are getting ready for the third jihad, which is the Western world.
It started in Egypt and the Egyptians took care of it. The Egyptians didn't allow it. Right?
That is correct.
It started in Egypt and the Egyptians didn't. It's not us. The United States didn't stop it. The United States said it's a coup. They considered it a coup for the current president to revolt against a democratically elected president. But that's what the people said. The people didn't want an Islamist. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, speaking of politics.
Yes, ma'am.
Eric Johnson's our new mayor.
Is he?
Very good.
Yes. Any other question? Again, please excuse me if I offended anybody.
Oh, you're doing great. Very good. Very well.
Up until the end of the First World War, Turkey and the Ottoman Empire ruled much of the now contested nations in the Middle East. Of course, Turkey is a Muslim country. Would it have been better had not the Western nations, in fact, as you said, France and Great Britain and so on and so forth, taken over and allowed Turkey to sort of work out the religious differences in the Middle East?
Again, I don't want to talk politics, but it was World War I, and Turkey put itself in a position where we had to do something. And war is ugly. War is ugly. Turkey lost. Turkey lost. By the way, that's where all the problems of the Middle East started. Before World War I, the entire Middle East and North Africa were just like one country, like the United States. You could ride your camel or your donkey or drive your car for 2 months. You don't have to stop by any immigration or political barrier. It was all part of the Ottoman Empire. When Turkey lost, the Allies took over and partitioned that part of the world. Egypt, Sudan, what else? Egypt, Sudan, Palestine, they were all put under the British mandate. Lebanon, Syria, Tunisia, Algiers were put under the French mandate. Morocco, including Morocco. Libya was put under the Italian mandate. That's where, had it been better, it's not for me to say, it's not for you, but that's where all the problem, war is ugly. Turkey lost the war, and that was the result of it.
So do you think, as I say, now Middle East just seems to be a hotbed of trouble and religious strife, political strife, and so on and so forth. So what solution could there be actually? I mean, would it be best, for example, as I've advocated, America go to the Middle East, apologize, declare victory, and come home actually?
You know who's Ishaq Rabin? Anybody
Yes.
know Ishaq Rabin?
Rabin.
Ishaq Rabin was the Prime Minister of Israel, the most decorated general in the history of Israel. Ishaq Rabin. He was the one who started peace. He stood in the Knesset. The Knesset is a Hebrew word meaning parliament, just like our Congress. He stood in the Knesset and he said, we have one of three solutions. Either make Israel democratic, give everybody the same right, the same obligation, the same duty, make it a true democratic state, make the Palestinians full citizens just like us, and we cannot do that, we don't want to go there. Or kill every born and unborn Palestinian, and we cannot go there. Or give them their piece of land, keep it under the microscope, keep it checked under control, and get done with it. You know what happened?
Rabin was murdered.
He was killed. You know by whom?
I know by whom, but
He wasn't killed by Palestinians.
I know what the official record says.
He wasn't killed by Palestinians.
Right.
He was killed by right Israelis.
By who?
Right Israelis. Right Jews. Right Jews.
Shimon
Yeah.
Peres.
Yeah.
Shimon
Good
Peres
Jews,
was,
yeah. Right Jews.
Hasidim. Hasidim. The black cats. The maniacs.
Sir, the Palestinians, we're the most educated people in the area. We're much more educated than the Egyptians, than the Syrians, than the Lebanese, than the Saudis. Okay. We've been living as refugees for the last 7 years. Israel occupied what used to be biblical Palestine or historical Palestine back in 1948, almost 80 years ago. The people who stayed over there, they're not considered full citizens. They're Israelis, they have Israeli passport. They can vote, but they are treated like third-class citizens. The people of the West Bank, Gaza and the West Bank. Israel occupied the West Bank 1967, 52 years ago. They refused to treat us as people under occupation and follow whatever the United Nations rules mandate for people under occupation. They refused to make us citizens. They refused to give us our country. They refused any form of self-determination for us. I don't know what kind of peace you can expect from that.
So is the solution really a two-state separate solution? You think that would work?
For me as a Palestinian, my preference is one-state solution. My preference, I'd like to be citizen of one strong, powerful state.
Would that include Jordan as well?
Jordan is Jordan. Jordan is Jordan, Palestine is Palestine.
But I mean, it's all part of the same thing.
It's not the same people, sir. People living in Jordan are Palestinians. People living in Jordan, by the way, do you know how Jordan came to exist? Do you know how Jordan came to exist? The big man under the Ottoman Empire was the grandfather of King Hussein of Jordan. He was living in Mecca. They call him Sharif Hussein of Mecca. He had struck a deal with the British. You lobby the people against the Turk, will make you happy. You lobby people against the Turks, Allies won, they made him happy. They made his two sons king. His first son, King Abdullah, was made king over Jordan. His second son, King Faisal, was made king over Iraq. But Jordan is Jordan, Palestine is Palestine. When Israel was created in 1948, there was a huge influx of people, of Palestinians, all over, in all directions. Jordan has the longest border with Palestine. Most of the people went east to Jordan. The population of Jordan now, as we speak today, the population of Jordan is more than 75% Palestinians.
Yeah, which is why I say they're the same people, because
They are not Jordanians. The country doesn't consider them Jordanians.
I know, but
They
the
do
people,
not consider themselves the Jordanians. Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry. Yeah, I come back to you, sir. Yeah.
I'm not clear, I've read bits and pieces of the Quran. Why the 5 different times do you pray? And is there a punishment if you miss one of the times? Or,
Not by me. Not by me. Why? I really don't know. It's mandated. It's a way of keeping you connected with your God. It's a way of keeping you having a check on yourself. Just a way for you, you know what I mean, to mind what you do. I mean, what you do if you don't, I really don't. I try to do there are times when I don't do my 5. There are times where it's easy, by the way. I mean, God made it so easy. What you see is not really what religion is. It doesn't have to be on that mat that you see us doing. It doesn't have anywhere that is clean, I can do it. Anywhere. I've been living with Mary for the last year. I don't know if she has noticed me doing it. Yeah, I mean, if you're busy, you can do it later on. If you're traveling, you can do it in the car. If you're sick, I mean, God made it so easy. But He wanted you to have the connection with Him.
and Muhammad, stress there.
Yes, Muhammad said nothing other than what the Quran said. Muhammad said nothing. It's not the religion. Muhammad just conveyed the message. It's in the Quran. It's in the Quran. It is in the Quran. And again, it takes 2 minutes, hardly 2 minutes. It takes hardly 2 minutes. It takes hardly 2 minutes, hardly. I pray in my office. I work for the state. I work for the city of Dallas now. I pray in my office. I mean, this is one of the things you and I and everybody should be proud of this country. This is what makes us great.
Radwar?
Yes, ma'am.
The sound's been so bad in here
Yeah.
tonight, so I just want to get the facts straight.
Yes,
You were born Palestinian, yes?
correct.
How, in what part of Palestine, and did you move after, your family moved after 48 to go to Saudi Arabia? I'm trying to get the
No. Thanks.
Lebanon, to Lebanon,
Thanks.
because I have a very specific question for you.
Thank you, appreciate it. I don't want to share every sad part of my story with you, but now that you asked this question, we tell you the whole story. We're originally from Palestine.
Yes.
We originated from what is now Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv used to be the Jewish quarter of Jaffa. Jaffa is the third largest city in Palestine after Jerusalem and Haifa. Jerusalem is the largest, Haifa is the second. Jaffa was the third. Tel Aviv was the Jewish quarter of Jaffa. We lived in Jaffa for I don't know how many thousands of years.
Speaking to the mic.
My parents,
It's good. It's good, yeah.
my parents were married in Jaffa. In 1948, when Israel was created, there was a huge exodus of Palestinians. You had to leave. You had to leave. Many of them had to leave. My mom's parents went north to Lebanon, where they had some property, some relatives, some business. Went north to Lebanon. My dad's family went south to Gaza, where my grandfather to my father's side has family and had property. From 1948 to 1962, there was no form of communication between Gaza and Lebanon. The only form of communication was through the International Committee of the Red Cross. You would send 2 words, you would get an answer after 6 months. In 1962, we had the first opportunity to go to Lebanon and see my side of the family over there. We went in 1962, we went another time in 1964, and that was it. After that, all of my mother's family passed away when she couldn't see them. The way I ended in Lebanon, I was lucky. I was a nerd. I was always being good at school. When Israel occupied Gaza in 1967, I was 1 year short of the high school. I didn't have a high school diploma. I was 1 year short. 1 year short. That year, neither Egypt, nor Israel, nor the United Nations could run examinations to qualify people. Israel was not ready enough. Egypt had just lost Gaza. Before that, Gaza was under Egypt, in the Egyptian administration. I dropped after school. I had to, my dad passed away in what we call Suez War, 1956. My dad passed away in 1956. My grandfather came from Lebanon to Gaza to take us, to take my mom and myself. My grandfather said, no, she can go, they cannot. He told my grandfather to my mom, she's your daughter, she's more than welcome to go, but these 3 children are ours. She would welcome to go, she would welcome to come and see them anytime. But anyway, they gave the choice to my mom. My mom chose to stay with us. She didn't go to Lebanon. 1967, Israel occupied Gaza. I dropped out of school. I had an older brother and a younger sister. I had a responsibility to support. I dropped out of school. The United Nations came back in 1968, and they did like a full entrance exam to qualify people. They took the elite of us. There was like a 2-year college in the West Bank, Bir Zayt, right by Ramallah. It was a 2-year college that time. They took us over there. I was supposed to study like surveying or TV technician, or I didn't know any English by that time. I did not know any English, not a single word of English at that time. We did so well. We had an orientation for like 8 weeks. I did so well. They took us into a 2-year program like an associate degree instead of technician. I did 2 years college and Bir Zayt. I did well. I got scholarship from the United Nations to study civil engineering at the American University of Beirut. For those of you who don't know the American University of Beirut, it's an Ivy League school. At one point in history, it was classified as the best university in the world outside the United States of America. The only better universities to that university were universities in the United States of America. I was lucky. I got a scholarship to study civil engineering at the American University of Beirut. I did so well. I got an assistantship for a graduate. I did a master's at the American University of Beirut. That was during the oil boom. Saudi Arabia was crying for civil engineers. They were crying for civil engineers. They needed roads, they needed schools, they needed government buildings, they needed water, they needed wastewater, they were dying for civil engineers. I went to Saudi Arabia and I had good opportunities over there. The only thing, I could live with their stupid rules. The one thing I couldn't live with over there is their immigration rules. There is nothing called a green card. There is nothing called citizenship. I told you, my son could never become a Saudi. My son could never go to Saudi school. I waited. I was hoping that one day there would be a Palestinian state. One day I could become a citizen of Lebanon, where I studied, where my mom family lived. One day I could become citizen of Saudi Arabia, where I was serving. Nothing happened. When my son was 6 years old, I did not want his education to be interrupted. I packed and came to the United States. I was working for Bin Laden. I don't know if you know Bin Laden. Bin Laden, the father of Osama Bin Laden. Bin Laden, if you don't know, has the largest, listen to this, the largest privately owned company in the world. It's not like Apple. It's not like General Motors. It's not like General Electric. It's not shares. He owned every piece of lumber. He had more than 25,000 housing units for his employees. When he died, he has like 60 sons. Osama was just one of them. Each one of them inherited like $300 million. That's how big he was. I was working for Bin Laden. I was doing really great. The only thing I couldn't live with is their stupid immigration laws. People are not friendly. I packed and came to the United States, and I regret every day I stayed over there.
But, the reason, which is a very poignant life story.
Thank you, appreciate it.
And, so in essence, you were kind of a stateless person.
I am stateless.
Yes. What about now?
I have a United Nations document that says I am stateless. I have United Nations, before I became a citizen.
Before you became a citizen, you were a stateless individual.
I
prior to
was
that.
stateless.
So the question I have,
Yeah.
given the history of your family, generations before you, in Palestine, And then, of course, the Palestinians came together with the Jews to fight the British and kick them out of Palestine. Okay, and then Israel got its statehood, obviously, and then all of a sudden, what was joint wasn't a joint venture anymore, and then, of course, so many Palestinians were disenfranchised from the get-go. Land was taken and so on and so forth, which obviously is festered and festered and festered even more so to where they're... I will get to the question. So where there have been all this festering, okay, and feelings that have gone through decades now, and your family having been recipients of same, how did you feel when you were a child and going into early adulthood, and whether it be in Lebanon or Saudi Arabia? How did you really feel about the Jews? And I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but you can't be around all of that without hearing cheery notes as it relates to Israel in general. So, and I know you've come, and then you've come here, and you know, have lived a very different life than any of the other countries that you were in. So I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I really,
Sure.
because I've met Palestinians here, that are still resentful of the fact that their grandfather lost their farms in the fertile countryside. So if it's not too personal, if you could please answer it.
Sure.
I'm sorry to be a subtle
Not at all.
sledgehammer
Not at
here,
all.
but
I'll be honest with you again. I'll be honest with you. What's going on in the Middle East first is not religious. It's political. As we speak today, there are Jews in Yemen, the poorest country on the face of the earth. There are Jews in Yemen. There are Jews in Lebanon. There are Jews in Egypt. There are Jews in Algeria. There are Jews in Morocco. There are Jews literally in every country in the Middle East, with the exception of Saudi Arabia. There are Jews that if you give them the deed, the title to all the United States of America, they wouldn't leave. There are Jews in Lebanon, everywhere in the Middle East. What's going on in the Middle East is political. We have nothing against the Jews. I have so much inside me against Zionists.
That's what?
Zionists.
Zionists.
Zionists is the political, yes.
Yeah.
And the only power on the face of the earth, that can make peace in the United States of America, in the Middle East, is the United States of America. And until all of us, all the people in the United States of America, know the facts, our administrations have not been objective. Our administrations have not been particularly with, I mean, again, I don't want to go into politics, particularly the Republican administrations. The last two Republican administrations have been horrible to do the least. The last two Republican administrations have, the last two administrations, W and Trump. W has given Sharon free hand to do settlements in the West Bank. Trump has given them Jerusalem and now the Golan Heights. Until the United States of America takes a more even-handed approach to the Middle East, peace is not going to happen in the Middle East. Only the United States of America can force a peace. The United Nations cannot. The Arabs cannot. The only power on the face of the earth that can make peace is the United States of America. But the kind of peace that our president is now talking about, I don't think it has any chance of
Ever work.
I don't think it has any chance of being even born.
Well, I'm really sorry that you have to personally go through what you went through.
I'm happy to be an American. I'm happy to be in this culture. I mean, I love Palestine, but I consider myself fortunate to be here. I do, I really do.
No, I'm saying here.
Thank you.
I'm from Australia.
Any
I
other,
think you get to sit down, finally.
thank you. Any other? Thank you. I apologize if I offended anybody. And I really, as an American and as a Palestinian American, I urge every one of you to check the news that we get in our media over here. We have been brought up, all of you, we've been brought up to trust our leaders and to trust our media. Things in the country are now, unfortunately, not to the point where you can trust you, unfortunately. So when you listen to the news, try to screen it, look for, okay? And again, I apologize.
Now, but before it's your turn to talk, I want to make a little announcement here. I got a message here from Mike Ghouse. He said here, Tom, I went to the hospital instead of Dallas. Had difficulty with kidney. Am on dialysis. My apologies. So that gave got a message. So I just want you to know that. That's what happened. And I want to thank our guest here for filling in. You did a great job. Now it's your turn to talk. So whoever wants to get up here and just talk either for or against what our speaker had to say, you're on. You got up to 5 minutes.
Gracias. First of all, I want to apologize if I don't offend anybody.
Me
Yeah,
first.
I've been working on it for a while.
Offend me first, Hank.
You'll get yours.
I'll get mine. Okay.
I forgot at the announcements. I also want to apologize for forgetting to mention it's Pride Month. Pride is one of the 7 deadly sins. Next month it will be sloth, then gluttony, then greed. As you said, greed ruins everything. It's one of the 7 deadly sins. So is pride. So let's look forward to that. I like wrath. I think wrath is coming up right after gluttony. And so I thought I would have a lot to say because I heard Dr. Ghouse talk before, and I thought, well, I got something to say to him. But it changed. And maybe something more important came up because our substitute speaker did very well, and he knew a lot about Palestine. And that's a big issue, so let's talk about that a little bit. I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you get to come up again. I think that Israelis and Palestinians are in many ways pawns of larger powers. I don't know if you know this. This is something I'm sure of. There was actually a bill on the floor of the American Congress in 1947 and 48 to give Alaska to the Jews. And they suppressed it because they wanted.
I would have voted for that.
Yeah, sure. But and the Jews would have gone, and they would have done real well, and America would have done fine with it. They would have developed it. But just to make an example, I think somebody likes the tension in the war. Now, when you say you prefer the one state solution, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, implied in that is that it will become Arab, Arab and Muslim within a couple of generations because they're having more kids than the Jewish are now. The Jewish are getting like the Americans; they're having less and less kids, and so that's part of it that you didn't say. And I think that's okay if they maintain a decent constitution and a way of life that you approve of. I think your values are very much in line with ours. You've proved it by being here years and being happy and making other people happy. So the thing that occurred to me just while I was sitting here, Okay, the Palestinians have been going on with this, being egged on by Iranians, by Saudis. Everybody's got something to say, about, hating the Jews and all this. And it occurred to me that the two really successful movements in that area are Gandhi and MLK, Martin Luther King. If you really believe that, I think it could happen if the Palestinians stopped advertising themselves as so full of victimhood and rage, because they don't have the arms. The Americans are giving them the arms, the Israelis, and they're not going to be able to overcome them that way. The only way they can overcome them is the way Gandhi overcame them and MLK. So I'm not saying copy them exactly. I'm saying show that you are civilized in the eyes of the rest of the world, and it will shame them into facing some of the facts that you saw. In other words, right now, when you bring up a good point, for instance, in the favor of your cause, there's always an atrocity they can point to. Look how crazy these people are. They want to kill the Jews, and then it goes nowhere. So I say, if you have any influence with your people over there, be in their bonnet to stop talking about everything that's wrong and bad from before, and just refrain from violence and violence of words, which you did today. There are a lot of people egging them on. There's a lot of pawns. We're all pawns. I mean, that's probably the thing that occurred to me today, so I want to say it. There's a lot of people being. You are going to.
You're going to get a chance to respond to everybody.
Okay, go ahead.
If it's quick, yeah.
Yeah. What would you suggest if I put you in place of leadership over the Palestinians? What is it that you could do as a Palestinian leader to bring peace?
The only thing I can say is very general, and it's not going to happen in one day, but it would be to tamp down the violent rhetoric and adhere to logic and fairness. Because as soon as we're having a fist fight, that goes out the window. Now, I'll give you an illustration of this. It's coming to our country in Europe as well. You said a quote. First my family, then my cousin, then my country, and you're last. Something like that. Remember you said that?
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
It's cultural. It's cultural.
Okay, now, that's called tribalism, and it's natural. And it's actually, it makes a little sense. It's natural, I mean, to a certain extent. In America, we go against that to a great degree. Right now, the pendulum's gone so far the other way, if it's for me, it's bad. That's what it is now. If it's for a white man, it's bad. If it's for a black, it's okay. And it's completely, so there's people, what I'm saying, it's another example of this place where we're being played like pawns. So, you got a lot to go up against. I know there's no black people in Arabia. I know there's,
No, you're wrong. You're wrong.
Oh, okay, well, you'll tell me about that. Okay. Well, not as many as we have here, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, the thing that's great about America is that you can go around that by going to the individual liberty thing. Like if I meet a person, I don't have to say the first thing. Thank you. First thing I have to say, he's black. Well, that's the first thing my eyes see, maybe. But we've had so much success with so many people of so many different races here and different backgrounds. That's not the first thing we have to see. And now we're being trained to see it again. The first thing I see is your race. The first thing I see is, what your politics is or what kind of sex craziness you're into. So anyway, you got your work cut out for you. And to his point, I don't know how you're going to do it, but it's very difficult for a Muslim to talk against the very violent Muslims. But it's going to have to happen if you're going to really have any weight behind your argument. Thank you.
I want to thank the speaker for his presentation. And it's,
Mike? Thank you.
hold it up a little bit so I have to bend down some more. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Good.
Okay, several things I thought about. One is when I was a sophomore in college at Prairie View, you had to take the ROTC 2 years. I didn't like ROTC. And after 2 years, in '57, I got out of it. I chose not to go in advanced ROTC. And before I had a military deferment, and I was home about 1 week before the university had notified my draft board, and I got a letter that said if I didn't get an active deferment, I'd be drafted real soon. So I got an academic deferment. I'm saying that as a preload to the topic we were talking about this evening. I didn't know where Lebanon was, but Eisenhower had sent troops to Lebanon, and that was the thing that got going. When I got back to college, the fellows in the political science department, we began to discuss that. And we were not theologians, but we knew that Ishmael, and the conflict is between Ishmael and Isaac. Isaac was the son of both Sarah and Abraham. Ishmael was the son of Abraham and Hagar. And that's a dysfunctional family we use in America. And it's difficult if you have a problem within a family. It's more difficult to solve that problem than you can with someone else. My point on this is, I don't think, the only person I think been president of the United States since we've been talking about the Palestinian Israelite situation was Jimmy Carter. And he understood what was going on. He got the thing moving, but it didn't go the way that he envisioned. And I think we as Americans, I know within the State Department, they have very brilliant people that knows a great deal about all over the United States, but they are not the president. And they're not the Secretary of State or the Secretary of Defense. So a lot of what they have doesn't get there, and we have other people make the direction. I tend to believe that it has to be a two-state solution, but both groups has got to agree that the other should exist. And if they can't do that, it's impossible to solve that problem. If I go back to another situation, Great Britain and the United States decided to go in and create a new Israel for Israel after World War II. And it's my understanding that the Palestinian Israelites that were living there got on quite well until that happened. And it's got worse and worse ever since. And my reason for saying that is the average American don't understand American history. And they most certainly don't understand the history and culture of other people. And that's what's required. The only way we can solve a problem like this is the Israelites and the Palestinians have got to start on what they can agree on and not start from what they disagree on. If you start on what you disagree on, you'll never get there. But if you start on what you can agree on, you can work that out. And I've never heard anyone recommend that as a solution to this problem. And you know, we didn't want to, do you remember the situation at Charlottesville, Virginia, when they were marching? What were the white men saying? Jews will not replace us. Jews will not replace us. So that's still bred in the fabrics of our society. And we've got to get beyond it. My good friend said white men, no, black men haven't quite made it yet. I can assure you that. We've made progress.
I'm talking about fairness.
We've made progress, but it's still not fair. It's still not fair. It's hidden. It's latent. I've lived it. I've been black, so I know I had to deal with it. But I, in spite of it, I was taught that you can do well if that's what you want to do. And that's been my experience, and that's what I try to teach my children, and I still teach, and I try to teach them that also. But we got to, it seemed like when we get involved in something, you indicate the only person can solve it, the United States would have a difficult solving it by themselves. Everything has to be done, in my perception, it's got to be done through the United Nations. That's got to be the umbrella, because we have not treated Jews in Palestine the same. And if we don't, that's hard to overcome, and that's inbred in the hearts of the Palestinians, that they're not going to be treated fair. So it's got to be Russia, the United States, China, Great Britain, and France. They got to get together. And if they get together, we can solve the problem. It's going to take more than the United States. Thank you.
Another trouble. Need notes? You want that kind of notes?
What was that gentleman's name? Just about.
Calvin couldn't agree with you more as it relates to it's going to take the UN to bring this together, you know, and this mic ain't work, that one's better, I guess. Anyhow, the other thing, you know, as it relates to the Middle East in general, the whole deal with the Western influence in various parts of there is not helping the situation. And it's really, and I agree also with you, Calvin, as it relates to what Jimmy Carter did to make a dent as it relates to relationships. One really wonders how far it could have gone once Sadat and Menachem Begin got together and they still trade with Egypt and to this very day, where it could have gone on from there, you know, one country, one at a time. Until the United Nations really steps up to human rights and a lot of other issues and treats the Palestinian rights to statehood as it should have a long time ago, it's not ever going to get really resolved. As it relates to people in general having a problem, I don't even know if there's one percent of the other one. No, the gentleman that spoke before.
Hank.
Hank.
Black and proud.
Black and proud. Okay. It didn't sound like you were black and proud.
That's my last name is stupid client.
Okay, it really didn't sound that way at all. And the, you know, this fetism attached to being white in this country, okay, is just it rocks the mind. And I know that that's true overall in most Western cultures, by the way, because most of them are white, predominantly white. There's just one thing that I heard this week, which I thought was incredibly fantastic as a response to this straight pride parade that the idea popped up in Boston or something or thereabouts, right? Yeah, they showed their true stripes back in the 70s as it relates to integration, so we know how they feel about even blacks in this country, okay? But when they came out with this, we want to do this straight pride parade, Pete Buttigieg's husband came back with a response on Twitter or what have you. I don't do it, so I don't know where it was. But in any case, he had said, you know, you're entitled to have a straight or a pride parade, okay? Or you're not entitled to have a pride parade, actually, because it was obviously anti-gay Pride Day. If, one, you have been jailed for your choices or your, you know, your sexual orientation, or two, you have been denied public services or health care because of your choices in life, or three, that you have you are open to being killed in other countries for having those same thoughts and or that same sexual orientation. And I just thought it was so right on as it relates to whether it be, you know, homosexuality preferences, gender, whatever it is, or you know, the racial inequalities that exist. All of those points that he was bringing forth, you know, are very relevant to how the world runs itself on what sect of a society that's going to be used in order to even promote a political agenda, for instance. Because certainly that's occurred, predominantly in this country, is ongoing as we speak, and it's shown up in whether you're Sunni or Shiite, you know, in the Middle East or any number of things. So anyhow, talking is very fine, but when you're at the tail end of being totally disenfranchised in society too, yeah, one can imagine that you're probably eventually going to stand up and fight, which is what they actually did when, you know, the revolution began in this country. So I'm sure back in England in the day, Paul Revere and his mob were definitely called the terrorists of the time. So in any case, that's all I have to say.
Well, I have to say I'm encouraged. Usually the last Muslim speaker we had here was very evasive about Sharia law and things like that. But our speaker tonight seemed to be not very much in favor of people going around killing people and espousing a militant point of view or a militant Islam. And he appreciates living in America. And I'd just like to make it clear that America is America because we have a constitution that articulates fundamental principles of getting along with one another and how to create a government and how to conduct that government and how to conduct ourselves in this country. The danger I see with Islam is Sharia law, where there are places in this country where people are practicing Sharia law. And Sharia law in America is like a malignant tumor in our body politic, because Sharia law is completely incompatible with our Constitution. You know, Saudi Arabia practices Sharia law, and every Friday they cut hands and heads off and execute people and throw gays from buildings and things like that. And that's Sharia law. That's the way they practice it in Saudi Arabia. And I don't want that happening here, and I don't want anybody who believes in that living here unless they reject that. If you live here in this country, you need to swear allegiance to our Constitution and live by the laws of the United States. And you need to take your Sharia law and shove it back offshore, back to the Middle East where it came from. It doesn't belong here. So I welcome anybody who wants to come here, be they Muslim or whatever religion or whatever background or culture they come from. But when you come here and live here, you abide by our laws and follow our Constitution. And if you don't want to do that, then move back where you came from.
Well, first I want to thank our speaker for having the bravery to come up in front of this group and give the presentation he did, which was excellent.
Maybe the other mic.
Maybe the other mic? Try that one. Neither one of them seem to be working very well. Try that.
Oh, there you go. Now it is.
Still very low.
The hand mic works.
buttons.
Test
on the
1, 2.
bottom. Big buttons on the bottom.
Ah,
No, big buttons.
big buttons.
Yeah, those right there. That's it, try it now.
Okay, is that better? Yeah, that's
Yeah, it's
immediately better.
Yeah, it's better.
Well, I was all prepped for Mike Ghouse, and Mike was from Pakistan. And I guess all I can do is relate some of the things I would have brought up, because back in 2002 in February, a very icy, cold February in Albuquerque, a Mr. Narayanan, a former head of India's CIA, was presenting in front of a Homeland Security group, and I was in the audience. And some question came up, and he said, "Well, I give my condolences for what happened September 11th, but he said in India we've had over 30,000 deaths related to terrorism. And 5 of these 7 terrorist groups operate out of Pakistan." And what I brought up to Mike Ghouse last time he spoke here was whether there were any way to fashion some kind of oath of ahimsa, because Ghouse, being from Pakistan, they are formerly part of India. And Gandhi worked during that time when the separation was taking place. So Gandhi's mission was about ahimsa. So I guess what I'm saying is there any agreement that a Muslim can come to where the Muslim will agree to a policy of nonviolence and basically make an oath of some sort that we're not going to go that active jihad path. If we're going to have jihad, it's going to be spiritual. It's going to be not on a level where we're attacking others. And so the question still stands to me that is it possible that a Muslim could come to that agreement and make some kind of agreement? Not that I'm saying it would be a requirement to work in this society, but considering some of the things that have gone on, I think it's at least a consideration, something to consider. Because I don't think it's unreasonable. And as far as the situation with Palestine and Israel, I was observing with a friend that there was one particular Israeli psychiatric hospital that had this strange pattern that people would be imprisoned there, Palestinians would be imprisoned there, and then they would leave there, and within a short time afterward, they'd be blowing up some restaurant or hotel or something like that. And I said, that's a really strange connection there, and is this something, in other words, who is actually programming this? And sometimes these events are happening on schedule for different political voting and things like that, where something's being considered. And I brought that up, and he said to me, John, he said, as far as attacks, all the Israelis would have to do would be not watch their border, and they'd be having attacks every day in Israel. Now, this is one of those things that someone else brought up, is if you are going to come to some kind of resolution or understanding there, how is it going to work? Because I think the Israelis are, when you, as you say, when you attack a group, they just simply go into a huddle. And most of the Jews I've talked to, they have very much a victim mentality. I have a Polish violin instructor who's Jewish, and it's a matter of kind of like, okay, well, who is the biggest victim here? And so, you know, they finally think they found their place there in Israel. And now, unfortunately, they appear to be adopting some of the same policies that they suffered under with the Nazi regime. I mean, it's not a good situation. So I'm posing those questions to you. I think one thing you did bring up, which I think I'm going to have to agree to, is if there is going to be a solution, it sounds to me like it needs to come from within the Muslim community. Someone needs to rise up and be the change inside Islam, inside the community, because if someone from outside attempts it, I don't think it's going to work very well. So maybe you can comment on that when you get back up.
Well, thank you very much. That certainly was a different talk than we expected tonight. It was much more interesting, in fact, because it did bring into focus some major problems in the world. You kept saying that the problem wasn't religion; it was political. I tend to somewhat question that. I think that when you do look at all religions, they all seem to come from the same starting point. They all say there's a supreme being, and then from that emanates human conduct. But overlaying that is cultural attitudes, especially relating to women, especially relating to poor people. And there we see this divergence. And the thing is, I think that culture really informs political actions, actually, far more than we think. It tends to be extremely emotional. And it's this absoluteness about the correctness of how you treat a woman and how you treat other people, I think, that causes this division. And of course, therefore, what politicians do is take advantage of these divisions. Divide, the old adage, divide and conquer. Because when you look about and you talk to people, if you could gather whole nations together, you probably could agree on certain precepts of conduct, okay, and how we conduct ourselves with respect to how we view other people and how we should treat them and so on and so forth. Yes, we could do that. The problem is, I think, these cultural divides, which seem to be so important to certain people, get in the way. And of course, these politicians, who are the biggest liars on the planet, I don't care which country you go to, then seize on that to suit their own ends. And so I think the two are intimately entwined and cause a lot of these problems, actually, these cultural differences. So you start off with okay, there's a divine being and from the blah blah blah, but then you shoot off in totally different directions. I mean, we've had these religious differences in the Protestant world. I mean, in the Middle Ages in England, the Catholics were killing off the Protestants and so on and so forth. I mean, and we had kings who were Catholic, who were deposed and so on. So this, really but they were the same people, actually. They were even the same class of people. The only difference was religion, which people found to be paramount about, against any sort of sane, rational thought. And I think this stepping back and cutting aside all these religious, cultural things, would be a great step forward and say, look, let's talk about, as Calvin said, let's talk about the things that we all want. You know, we all want the same basic things. We all want a decent living. We all want to be kind and generous and help people, I think, you know. And so on. We all want to see decent education and housing and so on. And we all, you know, as that guy said in Los Angeles, can't we all get along? You know, but you see, it's this not being able to get along, and I think this is what Ghouse is going to talk about, actually, how you get along in this world. And I think all these things, you know, this planet now is on the verge of killing itself off in one way or another. If they don't blow the whole place up, when some lunatic decides to start sending ballistic missiles around, you know, I mean, having lived in London during the war, you know, yes, you know, I can, you know, you see nothing like that, okay? And you know, the mass killings in the Second World War of what, 30 million people, you know, yeah. And these were just white people against white people, and you know, there was no connotation of race really in it. So it was just a total madness, actually, driven by madmen and orators who grabbed people's emotions and twisted it, okay, and to hate, which is the absolute, you know, opposite of how we should be treating each other. But no. So, yeah, so I think my own belief is that religion and politics, and we see in this country, is bound together in a very unhealthy manner, actually. And it's basically the top elite and politicians using it basically to their own advantage, to the detriment of the whole country. And you see it over and over, and you see it in the Middle East. You see it again. It's the same thing. Everywhere politicians go, they cause havoc. And I don't know how to cure that, other than, I don't care what constitution you have, you change it, you do this, that, and the other. People are people, and they will take advantage of other people. And unless and until you put in strictures about not actually punishing people for really taking advantage of others because of culture and religion and political views and so on, you know, it will still continue. I just don't see it changing.
You get the last word.
No, it's your turn.
No, you sit anywhere you want, but you get the last word.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Just one more.
No, you don't get a word yet.
Thank you.
Sit down.
Okay.
You get the last word.
Okay. Okay. I thought I am the last.
Alternate and alternate.
Okay, thank you.
You get the last word.
Put that thing down.
Okay. Anyone else? I guess I'm the last one standing. I want to thank our speaker for doing a great job here tonight. You guys all think that he brought out some very honest things well, anyway, I'm sorry Mike Ghouse isn't here, but I'm real happy you're here. So. One of the things that, maybe I could add something to this, throughout history, religions, we have so many different religions. Religions started, people started thinking, what happened, who am I, whatever, and they created a religion. And this happened everywhere. And like the Christian religions, they reached a point where they did an Old Testament and then a New Testament. If you ever look at the Old Testament, it's a lot of hate in there, a lot of, different things. And the Quran never changed. It was the Quran from the beginning to the end. And some of the things in the Quran that bother people, I just noted a couple things. There are those who deny our revelation, we burn them in fire, things like this. those that make war against our God and apostles and spread disorder, the hand shall be crucified, have their heads and feet cut off, all insides, and banished from the land. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that's still in the Quran. And maybe the people that live under the Quran ought to change it a little bit, get the bad stuff out, to make a better religion. And you wouldn't have everybody else fear. What I'm trying to say is that you can't hate what you know, and you can't fear what you understand. So if you know something and you understand it, you can't hate it or fear it. And we'd all get along a lot better if that was the case. In this country, we allow freedom of religion, but we don't allow the government to have a religion. In Islamic countries, the religion is the country, and that is not a good thing in this country anyway. And any Islam comes to this country, and we don't allow religion to control the state. That's not what we do. So anyway, I better shut up while I'm ahead. I'll give this back to you. You get the last word.
Thank you. Again, I want to apologize to each and every one of you if I offended you with anything I said. I tried to give you what I know. I didn't try to give you what you would like to hear. I give you what I know. Again, about the Palestinians, Arafat gave up the military struggle against Israel in 1981. I don't know if you recognize. In the United Nations, Arafat gave up the constitution of the PLO, called for the destruction of Israel, called for Palestine from the Mediterranean Sea to the River Jordan. It was amended in 1981. Arafat recognized Israel on 78% of what is biblical Palestine or historical Palestine. That is everything except Gaza and the West Bank. And the agreement was that Gaza and the West Bank would be a Palestinian state. Arafat gave up military struggle, took off his military. Before that, nobody had seen Arafat except with his pistol on his side. Arafat took off his pistol from that moment, 1981. Now, unfortunately, we the Palestinians, we did not see any fruit for that peace. We didn't see the Israelis and the world Arafat, and the reward as the Palestinians for that. We didn't see the world encourage us to continue in that path. There's something called Hamas. I don't know if you know what Hamas is.
Yes.
Hamas is a political party in Palestine among the Palestinians that is based on religious grounds. They said we tried everything else. We tried the Soviet Union. We tried 20 administrations in the United States. We tried Europe. We tried the United Nations. We tried the Arabs. Nothing worked. Let's try the Muslim world. So their agenda was based on Islamic foundations. Hamas started 1981, 82 around that time, and they started like they were not into politics. They were into like social group, helping people, clinics, hospitals, poor people, nothing more than that. From 1981 or 82 when they were first started until 2006 maybe, the whole world was trying to push them into politics, and they refused. They refused to go into politics. Their founder, I'm not Hamas by the way, I hate it. I'm not Hamas. Their founder, somebody by the name Ahmed Yassin, he had like 5, not 1, not 2, not 3, like 5 handicaps. He was blind, he was in a wheelchair. Anyway, they were trying to get him into politics. His answer to anybody who wanted to talk to him was, our address is Yasser Arafat. Go and talk to Yasser Arafat. They refused to talk into politics. They refused to get into politics. They were popular with the people. They were popular because, number one, they were helping people. Number two, Arafat and his people were corrupt, were morally corrupt. So they were popular. Around like 2006, they forced them to go into elections. They forced them to go into elections. Mubarak, the president of Egypt, he told them, do not do that. Anyway, they got into elections. They won around 75% of the vote. They denied them power. They denied them power. Since that time until today, Gaza is sealed. I am a US citizen. I have a US passport. I have a Palestinian passport. I have an Israeli passport. I own property over there. I'm the kind of Palestinian who never held the gun in my life. I talk. I express my opinion. I talk. But I never held a gun in my life. I cannot go to Gaza. Since Hamas took over Gaza in 2006, 2007, I cannot go to Gaza. President Jimmy Carter was denied from entering Gaza. President Jimmy Carter was denied from entering Gaza. As I said, I have US passport, Palestinian passport, Israeli passport. I have property over there. I'm retired from the state. I work for the city. I don't know what better Palestinian they want. I still cannot go there. About Saudi Arabia. Right after the war in Iraq, there was a lady by the name Karen Hughes. I don't know if anybody remembers the name.
She's from Texas.
From Austin, Texas. She was buddies with George W. when he was governor. When he became president, he took her with him to Washington and made her under Secretary of State. And he sent her to a mission to the major Muslim countries to polish our image after the Iraq War. She went to Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, Malaysia, Egypt. She went to major Muslim countries. When she came, she was on TV and I happened to watch her. She was saying that Saudi Arabia, everybody can hear me by the way? I'm sorry, the mic, yeah. She was on TV and I happened to watch her. She was saying Saudi Arabia needs to open up in many fields. They need to give rights to women. They need to give rights to non-Saudis. They need to give rights to non-Muslims. They need to give rights. Everything was saying I couldn't disagree with. I was jumping from my seat. I lived in Saudi Arabia. I'm a Muslim. I know what they're doing was not civilized, was not Islamic, was not Islamic. When she was done talking, there was another gentleman with her on the panel. He said, Mr. Hughes, you are out of your mind. I thought he was negating what she was saying. He said, you want the Saudis to give rights to women. Do men have any rights in Saudi Arabia? You want the Saudis to give rights to non-Muslims. Do Muslims have any rights in Saudi Arabia? What's going on in Saudi Arabia is neither Islamic nor civilized. It's serving one purpose only, for the royal family. That's it. Nothing else. Nothing else. If the killing of Khashoggi was done by any other nation, NATO airplanes would be moving, would be flying. They wouldn't allow the regime to stay for one day. somebody, all his crime is writing or talking. They kill him in an embassy in the way they did. Yeah, in the way they did, and the sad reality is we are covering up for them.
Yes.
The sad reality is we are covering up for them. Not only that, other than us, the Saudi regime would not live for one day. We are keeping them in power. I don't know, what else? The Palestinians, by the way, you know who are the most radical Palestinians? The most radical Palestinians are not Muslims. The most radical Palestinians are the Christians, Christian Palestinians. We have somebody called George Habash. I don't know if the name rings any bells. George Habash. George Habash. He's a doctor from the American University of Beirut. He is the one who started aeroplane hijacking. We have a lady by the name of Hana Ashrawi. She resigned from Palestinian Council because she thought Arafat was giving up too much for nothing. The most extreme right Palestinians are the Christians. It's not, the issue in the Middle East has nothing to do with religion, it's politics. The Christians in Palestine now, we have around 18%, 20% Christians in Palestine. And there are better Palestinians than most of us. There are better Palestinians, I'm saying this, I'm not trying to, but there are better Palestinians that really, they are, any way you look at it. Now, they vote for Hamas, which tries to run on religious grounds. Now they vote for Hamas. Again, I'm not Hamas. I hate Hamas. But the world has not pushed Arafat in the path that he tried to go since 1981. The path that when he stood with Rabin, 1981, the world did not reward Arafat and push him in that direction. The United States is cutting the role of anybody who is trying to become a mediator. The United States trying to take exclusive power on mediation in the Middle East, and they're not doing it even-handedly. They're not trying to become like honest broker. They're not. We need your help. We really need your help. I say this from the depth of my heart. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. I hope I didn't offend anybody.
Well, that's it for tonight. They kick us out of here at 10 o'clock. And our speaker's here if you want to talk to them. And that's it. See you next week.
Tape it.